Have you ever trusted someone so completely that the thought of them hurting you was impossible? A trust so pure it felt like the very foundation of your world. I had that, and I learned that the strongest foundations can be turned to dust in a single moment. My name is Clara, and this isn't just a story about heartbreak. It's a story about a love that was a lie, a betrayal that shattered me into a million pieces, and a revenge that would ensure he and everyone he knew would never forget my name. To the outside world, Alex and I were the perfect couple. We had the kind of love story that people write about. He was a charismatic architect, building dreams out of concrete and glass, and I was a graphic designer, painting the world in colors he inspired. Our life together was a meticulously crafted masterpiece. Or so I believed. We met 5 years ago at a charity gala. He was charming, intelligent, and had a smile that could disarm armies. He told me I was the most captivating woman in the room, and I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. Our courtship was a whirlwind of romantic dinners, surprise getaways, and deep conversations that lasted until dawn. He made me feel seen, cherished, and above all, safe. There had been an incident about 2 years in. A series of late nights at the office, hushed phone calls, and the faint scent of a perfume that wasn't mine. When I confronted him, he broke down. He swore it was a one-time mistake, a moment of weakness he regretted more than anything. He begged for forgiveness, his eyes filled with tears that I now know were as fake as the love he professed. And I, being the loving, trusting woman I was, forgave him. I believed in second chances. I believed in us. That was my first mistake. After that, things were even better. It was as if the near catastrophe had strengthened our bond. He was more attentive, more loving. He proposed 6 months later on a trip to Paris, under a sky full of stars, with the Eiffel Tower glittering in the distance. He promised me a lifetime of honesty and devotion. And I, blinded by love and the dazzling diamond on my finger, believed every single word. We were planning our wedding, a grand affair at a historic vineyard. I poured my heart and soul into every detail, from the invitations I designed myself to the flavor of the cake. Our families were overjoyed. Our friends called us couple goals. Life was perfect. But perfection, I've learned, is often the most convincing mask for the ugliest truths. The first crack in our perfect world appeared on a Tuesday. It was subtle, almost insignificant. Alex had been working late a lot, finalizing a huge project that he said would secure our future. I was proud of him, so I didn't question it. That evening, he came home, kissed me, and fell into bed exhausted. As he slept, his phone, which he always kept face down, buzzed on the nightstand. It lit up for a second, and my eyes caught a glimpse of the notification before it vanished. A name I didn't recognize, followed by a message that made the blood in my veins run cold. She has no idea, does she? Can't wait for our new life to begin. My heart hammered against my ribs. It had to be a mistake, a misunderstanding. Maybe a client with a strange sense of humor. I tried to tell myself 100 different stories, each one more far-fetched than the last. But a cold, familiar dread began to creep in. The same dread I'd felt 2 years ago.
I wanted to wake him up, to demand an explanation, but I was paralyzed by fear. Fear of what I might find. Fear that this perfect world I had so carefully rebuilt was about to crashing down all over again. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, listening to the steady breathing of the man I was supposed to spend my life with, and wondered, who was he really? And what other secrets was he hiding behind that perfect smile? The foundation of my world didn't just have a crack in it. I was beginning to realize I was standing on nothing at all.
The next few days were a blur of forced smiles and annoying anxiety that twisted my stomach into knots. I tried to act normal, to pretend I hadn't seen the message. I watched Alex, searching for any sign, any clue that would either confirm my fears or put them to rest. He was flawless, attentive, loving, talking excitedly about our wedding plans. He was the perfect fiancé. And that's what scared me the most. He was too good at this. I knew I couldn't confront him without proof. He'd just lie again, expertly twisting the narrative until I was the one apologizing for my lack of trust. No, this time had to be different. This time, I needed undeniable truth. The single thread of that late-night message was all I had, and I started to pull. My investigation began with his phone. It was a fortress, locked with a passcode I didn't know. He used to share everything with me, but somewhere along the line, he'd built walls. I started paying attention to his habits, watching him type the code when he thought I wasn't looking. It took me a week of stolen glances, but I finally got it. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the phone as I waited for him to fall asleep one night. My heart pounded in my ears as the phone unlocked. I went straight to his messages. The conversation with the unknown number had been deleted. Of course it had. My heart sank. But Alex wasn't as clever as he thought. He'd forgotten about the cloud backup. A few taps, a few agonizingly slow minutes of restoring deleted data, and there it was. A thread of messages that went back months. The woman's name was Serena, and she wasn't just some casual affair. The messages were a tapestry of shared dreams, inside jokes, and intimate promises. They spoke of our house, our future, and when Clara is out of the picture. But it got worse, much worse. They weren't just planning a life together. They were planning to build it with my money. My father had passed away a few years prior, leaving me a substantial inheritance. It was something I rarely touched, a safety net for the future. Alex knew all about it. In fact, he'd been the one to suggest I invest a large portion of it into his new architectural firm, a joint venture that he promised would set us up for life. I had trusted him implicitly. I'd given him power of attorney to manage the investment, believing we were building our empire together. Reading their messages, I felt the air leave my lungs. They were discussing the final transfer of funds, timed perfectly for the week before our wedding. Once the final investment is in, we can dissolve the firm and start fresh in Italy, one of Alex's messages read. She'll be so caught up in the wedding drama, she won't notice a thing until we're long gone. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was systematically dismantling my life, using my love and trust as his primary tools. He wasn't just betraying our relationship, he was betraying my father's memory. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was a cold, calculated plan. He wasn't my partner, he was my mark. I scrolled further,
my vision blurred by tears of pure rage. I found pictures of them in restaurants I loved, on weekend trips he'd claimed were for business, and in a half-finished house that he told me was a surprise project for one of his clients. It was our house, the one they were planning to live in with my money. The final, soul-crushing blow was a video. It was of Alex and Serena, champagne glasses in hand, laughing on the balcony of their future home. Alex looked at the camera, a smug grin on his face. To our new beginning, until the end of my very generous but very naive fiancé. In that moment, something inside me broke. The love I felt for him, the pain of his infidelity, it all curdled into something else. Something cold, hard, and sharp. The woman who cried over his first betrayal was gone. The woman who believed in second chances was a fool. Staring at the screen, at the face of the man who had so utterly destroyed me, I didn't feel sadness anymore. I felt a chilling, clarifying calm. He thought I was naive. He thought I was just a stepping stone. He had no idea who he just awakened. He and Serena wanted a new beginning. I would give them an ending they would never forget.
I didn't confront him. I didn't scream or cry or throw his things onto the street. The old Clara would have. But the new Clara? She was different. She was a strategist. For the next few days, I played the part of the devoted fiancé perfectly. I discussed flower arrangements, tasted wedding cakes, and smiled sweetly as he lied to my face about his late nights at work. Every loving kiss he gave me felt like poison, but it fueled the fire inside me. He was living in a fantasy world where he was the puppet master. He had no idea I was the one now pulling the strings. My revenge couldn't just be emotional. It had to be systematic. It had to dismantle the very foundations of the life he was trying to build on my ruins. He attacked my heart and my finances, so I would aim for his career, his reputation, and his freedom. And I would do it on the biggest stage imaginable, our wedding day. The plan had 3 phases. Phase 1, the financial takedown. Alex believed he had full control of my investment account. What he didn't know was that my father, a shrewd businessman, had insisted on a clause in the trust that required my final, personal authorization for any transfer over a certain, very high threshold. The end investment Alex was waiting for was that exact amount. He had the paperwork. He had my signature from a pile of documents he'd asked me to sign for the business, but he didn't have the last piece of the puzzle. I spent my nights not planning a wedding, but talking to my family's lawyer. I learned every loophole, every clause. I found out that the architectural firm Alex had created was a shell corporation, designed to be dissolved easily. The joint venture agreement he had me sign was heavily skewed in his favor, but it had one fatal flaw. It was predicated on the final investment. Without it, the entire structure was vulnerable. I started quietly moving my assets, securing my inheritance in a new trust that he couldn't touch. I gathered all the evidence, the text messages, the photos, the video, the fraudulent business documents. I was building a case not just for a broken heart, but for criminal fraud. Phase 2, the professional demolition. Alex's reputation was everything to him. He prided himself on his integrity and his visionary designs. He was on the cusp of winning a major, career-defining contract to design the new city art museum. He'd been bragging about it for weeks, telling me how his name would be etched in history. His partner on the bid? Serena. I discovered she was a junior partner at the firm sponsoring the competition. Their relationship wasn't just personal.
It was a gross professional conflict of interest. I started an anonymous email account. I compiled a neat little package, evidence of their affair, proof that they had shared confidential information about the bid, and hints of financial instability within Alex's shell corporation. I sent it to the head of the museum selection committee, to the local architectural guild, and to a well-known industry journalist who loved a good scandal. I timed it perfectly. To be open the day before the final contract was to be announced, the day of our wedding. Phase 3, the grand display. This was the grand finale, the part that everyone would talk about. Our wedding was set to be a huge event, over 200 guests, including Alex's most important clients, his mentors, and all of our family and friends. It was the perfect audience. I continued with the wedding preparations as if nothing was wrong. I even met with the wedding videographer, but I had a special request. I gave him a USB stick. This is a little surprise for Alex, a tribute to our love story. I want you to play it on the main projector screen right after the vows, instead of the romantic montage we planned. He thought it was a sweet, romantic gesture. He had no idea it was a weapon. The USB stick contained everything. The damning text messages displayed clearly on screen, the photos of him and Serena smiling in their house, and the grand finale, the video of them toasting to my downfall. My best friend, Maya, was the only person I let in on the plan. At first, she was horrified. Then she was furious on my behalf. She became my co-conspirator, my rock. She helped me with the logistics, rehearsed the timing with me, and promised to be by my side no matter what. The week before the wedding was the hardest. Living with him, pretending to be blissfully in love, while knowing the truth was an exercise in extreme self-control. He was more charming than ever, convinced he was just days away from securing his perfect life. The night before our wedding, he held me close and whispered, "Tomorrow our forever starts." I looked into his eyes and smiled, a genuine smile for the first time in weeks. "I know," I said. "It's going to be a day nobody will ever forget." And I meant every word. He thought he was closing a chapter, but I was about to burn his entire book.
The morning of the wedding arrived with a breathtaking sunrise. The sky was a painter's canvas of pink and gold, a perfect backdrop for the drama that was about to unfold. From the window of my bridal suite at the vineyard, I could see the staff making the final preparations. White chairs arranged in perfect rows, flowers cascading from arches. A scene straight out of a fairy tale. A twisted, dark fairy tale. A strange sense of calm washed over me. There were no more tears, no more rage, just a quiet, unshakable resolve. Maya was by my side, a steady presence in the whirlwind of hair and makeup. She would occasionally catch my eye in the mirror, a silent question in her gaze. "Are you sure?" And I would give a small, almost imperceptible nod. "Absolutely." My mother came in, her eyes misty. "Oh, my beautiful girl," she said, clutching my hand. "I am so happy for you." A pang of guilt hit me. She, and everyone else I loved, was about to be caught in the crossfire. But this was necessary. This disease had to be cut out, and the surgery was going to be public. I put on my dress. It was a magnificent creation, a gown I had once dreamed of wearing. Now it felt like armor. Each button fastened was another piece of my defense clicking into place. When I looked at my reflection, I barely recognized the woman staring back. The soft, romantic girl was gone. In her place was a queen, ready for battle.
Meanwhile, I knew Alex was with his groomsmen, probably toasting with expensive scotch, completely oblivious. I had received a text from him that morning. "Can't wait to see you, my beautiful bride. Today is the first day of the rest of our perfect lives." The arrogance, the absolute certainty of his success, it was almost laughable. As the guests began to arrive, my plan was quietly moving into its next phase. Maya confirmed that the anonymous email I'd sent had been delivered and, according to a tracking pixel I'd embedded, opened by all the key recipients that morning. The seeds of his professional ruin were already sown. They would be sprouting just as his personal life was about to be incinerated. I also made one last call to my lawyer. "Everything is in place," he assured me. "The moment you give the signal, we file the injunction against the firm's assets and submit the fraud complaint to the district attorney's office. He won't be able to touch a single penny." The signal was a simple text message from Maya. "The doves have flown." The wedding coordinator knocked on the door. "It's time, Clara." My heart gave a single, hard thud. This was it. No turning back. I took a deep breath, smoothing down the front of my dress. Maya squeezed my hand one last time. "You've got this," she whispered fiercely. As I walked towards the aisle, clutching my father's picture tucked into my bouquet, I felt his strength with me. This wasn't just for me. It was for him. It was for every person who had ever been made to feel small and foolish by someone they trusted. The music began to play. The traditional wedding march. Every head turned. I saw my friends, my family, all beaming with happiness for me. And then I saw him, Alex, standing at the altar, looking handsome in his tailored suit, a confident, loving smile on his face. He looked like the man of every woman's dreams. But I knew a monster lurking beneath. As I walked down that aisle, step by deliberate step, I wasn't walking towards a new life with him. I was walking him to his judgment. And I was going to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. The storm was here, and he was standing right in the eye of it.
Standing opposite Alex at the altar felt like an out-of-body experience. The world seemed to move in slow motion. The gentle breeze rustling the leaves, the soft words of the officiant, the tears welling in my mother's eyes. It was all a cinematic backdrop to the silent war raging within me. Alex reached for my hands, his own warm and steady. He whispered, "You look breathtaking." I smiled back, a perfectly crafted illusion of a blushing bride. The officiant spoke of love, trust, and fidelity. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. I listened to the beautiful words, words that had once meant everything to me, and felt nothing but the cold, hard weight of the truth. I glanced out at the sea of faces, his parents looking so proud, his clients whose respect he craved, and somewhere in the crowd I knew was Serena. I hadn't seen her, but Alex had secured her an invitation under the guise of a work colleague. She was here to witness her victory. Oh, she was going to witness something, all right. It came time for the vows. Alex went first. He pulled a small card from his pocket, but then smiled and put it back. "I don't need this," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Clara, from the moment I met you, my world changed. You are my light, my inspiration, my everything. You have shown me what true love is, and I promise to spend every day of my life honoring that love. I promise to be honest, to be faithful, and to protect your heart always. I am the luckiest man in the world today." A wave of murmurs went through the crowd. People were dabbing their eyes. It was a masterful performance. For a fleeting second, the old me wanted to believe him, to fall back into the beautiful lie. But the video of him on that balcony flashed in my mind, and my resolve hardened like steel. Then it was my turn. The officiant prompted,
Clara, do you have vows you would like to share? I turned to face Alex fully, my hands still in his. I looked directly into his eyes, those eyes that had lied to me so many times. I do, I said, my voice clear and steady, ringing through the silent vineyard. Alex, I remember the promises you made to me too. Not just today, but years ago. You promised honesty. You promised fidelity. You promised to protect my heart. I paused, letting the words hang in the air. I could see a flicker of confusion in his eyes. And I learned a valuable lesson from you. You taught me that promises are only as strong as the person who makes them. You taught me the importance of looking beyond the beautiful words and seeing the actions behind them. You taught me what happens when trust is not just broken, but completely and utterly shattered. The mood began to shift. The smiles on the guests' faces faltered. My mother looked worried. Alex's grip on my hands tightened, a silent warning. I ignored it. So today, in front of everyone we know, I want to make my own vows. I vow to always trust my instincts. I vow to never again mistake lies for love. And I vow to always, always protect my own heart, my future, and my father's legacy from men like you. I pulled my hands free from his grasp. His face was a mask of shock and dawning horror. He knew. He knew that I knew. And there's one more thing, I said, turning slightly to address the stunned audience. I believe that love and marriage should be built on a foundation of truth. So, before we go any further, I'd like to share a little tribute to our love story, a story that Alex has been co-writing. I nodded to Maya, who was standing near the AV booth. She gave me a grim, determined look and then nodded to the videographer. The officiant stood, speechless. Alex started to move towards me, his face turning pale. Clara, what are you doing? He hissed, his voice a low panic. I'm just showing everyone the truth, Alex, I replied, my voice dangerously calm. The truth you worked so hard to hide. And then the massive projector screen that had been set up for the romantic montage flickered to life. The show was about to begin.
The first thing that appeared on the giant screen was a text message. My name and Alex's were clearly visible at the top of the thread. It was an innocuous message from me about cake tasting. Then a reply from him. Sounds great. Can't wait. Immediately following it, another message. This one to Serena. Stuck with cake tasting nonsense. God, I can't wait for this to be over. Counting the seconds until I see you. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. People were looking at each other, confused, horrified. Alex was frozen, his face ashen. His eyes darted from the screen to me, a silent plea for me to stop. There was no mercy in my gaze. The screen changed. Now it was a slideshow, set to a mockingly romantic song. The first picture was of me and Alex smiling at our engagement party. The next was a picture of him and Serena, taken the very next day, kissing on a beach. The slideshow continued like this, a brutal side-by-side comparison of my reality and his secret life. Our romantic dinner, followed by their candlelit meal. Me waving him off on a business trip, followed by a picture of him and Serena lounging by a hotel pool. With each new image, the murmurs in the crowd grew louder. I saw Alex's father stand up, his face a thundercloud of fury and embarrassment. His mother looked like she was about to faint. I saw his business partners and clients staring at the screen, their expressions shifting from disbelief to disgust. They were seeing the man they respected not as a brilliant architect, but as a liar and a cheat. Then came the financial evidence.
screenshots of emails discussing the Shell Corporation, excerpts from the fraudulent joint venture agreement with the most damning clauses highlighted in red, text messages between Alex and Serena explicitly detailing their plan to take my inheritance and flee. She's transferring the final amount next week. Italy, here we come. The atmosphere was electric with shock and outrage. People were no longer just watching a presentation, they were witnessing a crime unfold. They were seeing a man's entire life of deceit laid bare for all to see. And then, for the grand finale, the video. The image of Alex and Serena laughing on the balcony of their half-finished house filled the screen. The sound of their voices, clear as day, echoed through the vineyard sound system. "To our new beginning," Alex said, his smug face larger than life. "And to the end of my very generous but very naive fiancé," Serena added, clinking her glass against his. The video ended, and the screen went black. For a moment, there was absolute, stunned silence. You could have heard a pin drop. It was as if the world had stopped breathing. Then chaos erupted. People were shouting, crying. Alex's mother let out a strangled sob. His father was yelling his name, his face purple with rage. I looked for Serena in the crowd and finally saw her. She was trying to slip away, her face hidden, but people were pointing, recognizing her from the photos. There was no escape for her either. But my focus was on Alex. He stood there, completely exposed, his world utterly destroyed in the space of 5 minutes. All the charm, all the confidence had evaporated. He looked small, pathetic. He finally turned to me, his eyes wild with desperation. "Clara, how could you?" I looked at him, and for the first time, I felt nothing. No love, no hate, not even pity. Just emptiness. "You thought I was naive, Alex," I said, my voice just loud enough for him to hear over the din. "You were wrong. This isn't an ending. It's a consequence." I turned my back on him. I saw Maya making her way towards me, a triumphant, protective look on her face. She took my hand. "The doves have flown," she whispered. The signal had been sent. The final phase of my plan was in motion. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could hear the sounds of his empire crumbling behind me. The life he had tried to steal from me, the future he had plotted and planned for, it was all turning to ash, and I was the one who lit the match.
Walking away from that altar was the hardest and easiest thing I've ever done. I didn't stay to watch the full implosion. Maya and I got into a waiting car and drove away, leaving the wreckage of Alex's life smoldering in that beautiful vineyard. My phone immediately started blowing up, but I turned it off. For the first time in months, I wanted silence. I wanted peace. But the story, of course, was far from over. It was just beginning for everyone else. The wedding that wasn't became the talk of the town. It was a local news sensation. Guests had filmed the whole thing on their phones, and clips of my presentation went viral. The story was everywhere, framed as the ultimate tale of a woman scorned who took back her power in the most spectacular way possible. Everyone was talking about it. The professional fallout for Alex was immediate and catastrophic. The museum committee officially rescinded their offer, citing gross ethical violations. The article from the industry journalist came out the next day, a scathing expose on Alex and Serena, detailing their affair, their conspiracy,
and their fraudulent business practices. The Architectural Guild launched a formal investigation. Alex wasn't just humiliated, his career was over. No one would ever trust him with the blueprint again. And then the legal hammer fell. My lawyer's injunction froze all the assets of his shell corporation. He couldn't access a dime. The district attorney's office, presented with a mountain of undeniable evidence, pressed charges for fraud and embezzlement. Alex was arrested a few days later. The picture of him in handcuffs, looking disheveled and defeated, was on the front page of the local paper. Serena faced her own consequences. She was fired from her firm for the conflict of interest and for her role in the conspiracy. She was named as a co-conspirator in the fraud case. Their dream life in Italy had turned into a nightmare of legal fees and public shame. His family, understandably, was devastated and ashamed. His father, a man I had once respected, left me a long, rambling voicemail. He didn't apologize for his son's actions, but berated me for the public humiliation. I deleted it without a second thought. They were part of the illusion, and I was done with illusions. My own family and friends rallied around me with fierce loyalty. They were shocked, of course, but their shock quickly turned to anger on my behalf. My mother, once she got over the initial horror of the public spectacle, held me and told me she had never been prouder of my strength. Did I feel good about all of it? It's a complicated question. There was no joy in destroying the man I once loved, but there was a profound sense of justice. He had tried to erase me, to reduce my life to a line item in his budget for a new one. I hadn't just stopped him, I had shown him and the world that I was not a victim to be pitied. I was a force to be reckoned with. The revenge was epic, yes. Everyone talked about it, just as the title of this story says. But it wasn't just about the spectacle. It was about reclaiming my narrative. He had written me into his story as a fool. I had simply written myself out of his and written him into a tragedy of his own making. The scales were balanced. He had taken everything from me, and in the end, I had left him with absolutely nothing.
The weeks and months after the wedding were a strange mix of turmoil and tranquility. The legal proceedings dragged on, a constant, low-level hum in the background of my new life. I had to give statements, sit through depositions, and relive the details of the betrayal over and over. But with each telling, the story lost a little more of its power over me. It became less of a personal trauma and more of a factual account of a crime. Alex, through his lawyers, tried to paint me as a vindictive, unstable woman. They tried to argue that it was a relationship gone sour, not a criminal conspiracy. But the evidence was too overwhelming. The video, the texts, the financial records, they were irrefutable. In the end, he pleaded guilty to a lesser charge to avoid a longer sentence. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Serena, for her cooperation, received probation and community service. I sold the house we were supposed to live in, the one I had poured so much of myself into. I used the money to start fresh. I packed up my life, left the city that held so many ghosts, and moved to a small town by the coast. I needed the ocean, that vast, powerful expanse, to remind me that my world was bigger than him, bigger than what he had done to me. I threw myself into my art. For the first time, I wasn't designing for clients or for life I thought I was supposed to have. I was painting for myself. My canvases were filled with bold, angry, and eventually vibrant and hopeful colors. All the pain, the rage, the betrayal, I poured it all out onto the canvas. It was therapy. It was healing. I reconnected with myself, the person I was before Alex. I went hiking, I read books, I sat in cafes and just watched the world go by. I spent time with Maya and my family, rebuilding the true foundations of my life, the ones based on real, unconditional love. There were hard days, of course, days when a song on the radio or a random memory would bring a fresh wave of sadness. The ghosts of the man I thought he was, the future I thought we would have, would sometimes visit me in the quiet moments. Betrayal leaves scars that fade but never fully disappear. It changes the way you see the world, the way you trust others. But I learned to live with those scars. They became a part of my story, a reminder of my resilience. I had walked through fire and come out the other side, not unscathed, but stronger. I had been broken into a million pieces, but I was slowly, carefully, putting myself back together, creating a new mosaic that was more beautiful and more intricate than the original ever was. People in my new town didn't know my story. They just knew me as Clara, the artist with the bright laugh who loved walking her dog on the beach at sunrise, and I liked it that way. My epic revenge was a chapter of my life, a defining one, yes, but it wasn't the whole book. The rest of the pages were still unwritten, and for the first time in a very long time, I was excited to write them myself. It's been 2 years now since that day at the vineyard. Life is different. It's quieter, it's simpler, and it's more authentically mine than it has ever been. My little art studio, which started as a form of therapy, has turned into a successful business. People from all over connect with the emotion in my work, the story of survival and strength that lies beneath the colors. They don't know the specifics, but they feel the truth of it. I hear things about Alex sometimes, through the grapevine. He was released from prison a few months ago. His name is still toxic in the architectural world. He's working a low-level drafting job in another state, living a life of anonymity and obscurity, a life so far removed from the grand empire he had planned. He got his new beginning, just not the one he envisioned. As for Serena, her name is forever linked with his in scandal. The public nature of it all made it impossible for her to simply move on. Last I heard, she was working in a completely different field. Her ambitions of being a powerful partner in a top firm turned to dust. Do I think about them? Rarely. They are ghosts from a past life, figures in a story that feels like it happened to someone else. The rage and pain that once consumed me have been replaced by a quiet, steady sense of peace. Forgiving him is not something I've actively pursued, because what he did was, in many ways, unforgivable. But I have reached a place of indifference, which I think is its own form of freedom. He no longer has any power over my emotions. My epic revenge gave me justice, but my healing, that came from me. It came from rediscovering my own worth, my own strength, my own voice. It came from learning that the end of a relationship, even one that ends in such a spectacular explosion, is not the end of your story. Sometimes people come into our lives to teach us something. Alex taught me a brutal, painful lesson about trust and deception. But he also inadvertently taught me about my own capacity to fight back, to survive, and to rebuild. He tried to be the architect of my destruction, but instead, he became the catalyst for my rebirth. I am no longer the naive girl who believes in fairy tales, but I am also not the hardened woman who has closed her heart off forever. I am something new. I am a survivor. I am an artist. I am a woman who knows her own worth, a woman who built her own foundation out of the rubble of a lie. My story became a cautionary tale for some, an inspiration for others. But for me, it's a testament to the fact that even after the deepest betrayal, you can find your way back to the light. You can create your own new dawn. And that is a revenge far sweeter and more lasting than any public spectacle. It's the quiet, profound revenge of living well and living freely on your own terms. Clara's journey is a powerful reminder that sometimes the end of a story is just the beginning of our own. She turned her deepest pain into her greatest strength, not just by seeking justice, but by choosing to heal. What part of her story will stay with you? Let us know in the comments below. If you were moved by this story of betrayal and rebirth, please show your support by giving this video a like and subscribing to Diaries for more tales of the heart's battles and its greatest triumphs. Until next time, remember to own your story. Thank you for watching.